The Last Days of 1990. My name is Ethan, and I want to tell you a story. It's a story about the last days of 1990, a time I will never forget. It was a time of change, of hope, and of saying goodbye to an old world while stepping into a new one. It all started on a cold December morning. I was 12 years old, and my family lived in a small town surrounded by forests and fields. The air was crisp, and the ground was covered in a thin layer of snow. Christmas was just a few weeks away, and everyone was busy preparing for the holidays. But something felt different that year. It wasn't just the cold or the snow. It was something bigger, something I couldn't quite explain. My dad had been acting strange for weeks. He would sit by the radio for hours, listening to the news. Sometimes he would call my mom into the room, and they would talk in hushed voices. I didn't understand what was happening, but I knew it was important. One evening, after dinner, I finally asked him, "Dad, why do you keep listening to the radio?" He looked at me for a moment, then sighed. "Ethan, the world is changing," he said. "Big things are happening, and I want to make sure we're ready." "What kind of big things?" I asked. He hesitated, then said, "The world is becoming a different place. Countries are changing. People are changing. And soon, the year 1990 will be over. It's the end of an era." I didn't fully understand what he meant, but I could tell it was serious. The next day at school, my teacher, Mrs. Thompson, talked to us about the same thing. "Class," she said, "1990 is almost over. It's been a year of big changes in the world. Some countries are becoming free, and people are fighting for their rights. It's an important time in history." I raised my hand. "Mrs. Thompson, what's going to happen next?" She smiled. "No one knows for sure, Ethan. But one thing is certain, the world will never be the same again." Her words stayed with me. I started paying more attention to the news. I listened to the radio with my dad and watched TV with my mom. I learned about things I had never heard of before, like the fall of the Berlin Wall and countries gaining their independence. It was exciting, but also a little scary. As the days went by, the feeling in our town changed. People seemed more hopeful, but also nervous. Everyone was talking about the future. One afternoon, my best friend Mia came over to my house. We sat in my room, talking about everything that was happening. "Do you think the world will be better next year?" Mia asked. "I don't know," I said. "But I hope so." Mia looked out the window. "I hope we get more snow for Christmas," she said. I laughed. "Me too." But deep down, I knew there were bigger things to think about than snow. On December 31st, 1990, the whole town gathered in the square to celebrate New Year's Eve. It was a cold, clear night, and the stars were shining brightly. There was music, laughter, and the smell of hot chocolate in the air. Everyone was happy, but there was also a sense of something ending. My family and I stood near the big clock in the square. My dad held my hand, and my mom held my little brother, Sam. We all watched as the clock ticked closer to midnight. 10, 9, 8. The crowd counted down. I looked around at the people in the square. Some were crying, others were smiling. I didn't fully understand why, but I felt it too. The end of something old and the beginning of something new. 3, 2, 1. Happy New Year! The crowd erupted into cheers. Fireworks lit up the sky and people hugged each other. My dad picked me up and spun me around. "It's a new year, Ethan," he said. "A new beginning." I smiled, but I also felt a little sad. I didn't want to say goodbye to 1990. It had been a year full of memories, birthdays, holidays, and time with my family and friends. But I knew that life was about moving forward. As we walked home that night, I looked up at the stars. I thought about everything that had happened in 1990 and everything that was still to come. I didn't know what the future would bring, but I felt hopeful. The last days of 1990 taught me something important. They taught me that change is a part of life. Sometimes it's scary, and sometimes it's exciting. But no matter what, we have to keep moving forward. So here's my message to you. Life is full of endings and beginnings. Don't be afraid of change. Embrace it, learn from it, and look forward to the future. Because every ending is also a new start. And that's the story of the last days of 1990. It was a time I will never forget, a time of saying goodbye and hello all at once.
Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next one. See you soon.